Welcome back to Cherish Ephesians 6:4. The article this week is titled, Is the Bible True? And I have two introductions for you. The first one goes like this. Introduction number 1. Dear friends, maybe you know someone in your life, a friend, family member, who has rejected the Bible and Christianity, and maybe you struggle to share information with them about this topic. So over the next several weeks, I'm planning to address some of the common objections to the Bible and Christianity. And Lord willing, eventually I will pull these articles together into a playlist that I hope will be helpful. So please pass this along to a friend or a loved one. And when you pass it along, you would see, or they would see, introduction number 2, which says, Dear loved person. So if you're reading this, it may be because the person who loves you passed it along. I know I can speak for them when I say that the information that they want me to share is literally life-changing. However, you may have heard something about the Bible or what Christians believe, and you've decided it's not for you. And I can think of a lot of reasons for your decision because I'm sure that I had some of the same ones for my disbelief. Did you go to a church one time in the past and you got nothing out of it? Been there. Did you experience people who said they were Christians, yet they were some of the worst people you have ever met? Been there too. So I could go on to discuss those experiences, but the one objection to the Bible that I invite you to think about today is about whether or not the Bible itself is actually true. Why? Because if it's not true, every conversation about the Bible or Christianity is dead, and there's nothing to talk about. But if it is true, it will save your life from this confusing and depressing world and give you meaning and joy today and forever. So there's much to say on the question, but I'm going to attempt to boil down literally thousands of pages written in the past to a handful of powerful ideas. But before I do, I have to ask you one question and then ask you to do one thing. First, do you really want to know? I mean, are you open to learning something that might change your mind, or have you already decided that this is baloney? Now, I know for myself that if I've been kind of locked into a conclusion or certain perspective about something, it's really hard to be open to change. So that's the reason for me asking you then to do something, and that something is pray. So you might say, pray? I don't know how to pray, and I never do. I wouldn't even know what to say. And I understand, and I don't even care what you say. But I think all of us instinctively can look upwards and ask for help. Just ask that you receive help to keep an open mind about what you're about to hear. Okay, so let's talk about the Bible. What is the Bible? The Bible is a collection of writings penned by 36 different men from different walks of life, different cultures, and different professions over 1,500 years. And here is one of the amazing facts that should land on us hard. Many of the authors never knew each other, yet what they wrote is part of one story. And even more startling is the fact that while each of their writings support and complement the others, there are no contradictions. We must ask how that could be possible, and the Bible gives us the answer. Through those 15 centuries, God put into the mind of these men the exact words that God wanted them to write down. But where did they write them down? Some wrote on stone or pottery pieces, clay tablets, papyri, and even animal skins. And the writings were copied and passed on to the next generation for safekeeping. But how do we know if some of the original writings or copies were made up or had mistakes in them? Well, scholars have compared many manuscripts and have found that there are minor mistakes that were made in copying and transcribing through the years. but none of the differences change the meaning of what was written. So put another way, it would be as if a modern-day person were to make a copy in English and missed dotting an I or crossing a T. No big deal. It would not change the meaning of what was written. The newer writings, called the New Testament, are even easier to prove true and accurate. If you think about how we have always trusted other ancient writings and the proofs that we have readily accepted and compare them to the incredible proofs that we have for the Bible, it is patently clear that the Bible is both accurate and true. So, for example, the copies of manuscripts that we have for Plato or Caesar are respectively 210 manuscripts and 251 manuscripts. But the manuscripts that we have for the New Testament are over 20,000. As I mentioned earlier, the Bible is one story written by many authors over 1,500 years. The main subject of the Bible is Jesus Christ, and prior to his birth, the Old Testament writers wrote about his coming and what would happen in his lifetime. When someone writes about something that will happen in the future, it's called a prophecy, and there are hundreds of prophecies, sometimes referred to as messianic prophecies, about Jesus Christ. And I want to share with you a mind-blowing calculation that was done by mathematician Peter Stoner. The following is available from a number of sources online. Quote, Professor Peter W. Stoner was chairman of the Departments of Mathematics and Astronomy at Pasadena City College and chairman of the Science Division at Westmont College. In his book, Science Speaks, Professor Stoner outlines the mathematical probability of one person in the first century fulfilling just 8 of the most clear and straightforward messianic prophecies. Josh and Sean McDowell quote Stoner in their book, Evidence That Demands a Verdict, says, We find that the chance that any man might have lived down to the present time and fulfilled all 8 prophecies is 1 in 10 to the 17th power. That's 1 in 10 to the 17th power. I'm not even sure what number that is. That's just me speaking. That's not a quote. I'll go on with the quote. Stoner went on to calculate the probability of one person fulfilling 48 prophecies. 1 in 10 to the 157th power. In case you're questioning whether Professor Stoner's math was wrong, Harold Hartzler, PhD of the American Scientific Affiliation Goshen College, writes in the foreword of Stoner's book, The manuscript for Science Speaks has been carefully reviewed by a committee of the American Scientific Affiliation members and by the Executive Council of the same group and has been found in general to be dependable and accurate in regard to the scientific material presented. The mathematical analysis included is based upon principles of probability which are thoroughly sound, and Professor Stoner has applied these principles in a proper and convincing way. Unquote. These calculations about what would happen, these prophecies in the life of one man, Jesus Christ, made hundreds of years before Jesus was even born, are calculations made based on the possibility that they would turn out to be true. In fact, Jesus Christ was born, lived, and died in the ways that were prophesied about him. Now remember, there were hundreds of prophecies made about Jesus Christ by those ancient writers, but Professor Stoner did his calculations based on only 48. To continue the exercise using a larger number of prophecies coming true would only provide us with probabilities that would just continue to bury deeper the idea that there is any possibility that all of this was some kind of coincidence. So, at this point, you may have opened up to the idea that the Bible is true, or you are fighting the clear evidence that has been put before you. You may be thinking, do I need faith to believe the Bible is true? And I would say to you, no, you don't need some blind, unsubstantiated faith to believe it's true. You need faith in something else to believe the Bible is not true. The numbers given here as evidence are staggering. There are other ways to prove that the Bible is true, but I've chosen what I believe is the clearest and most powerful way to convince you. You may also be wondering, and maybe even fearful, that if you say you believe the Bible, you will have to give things up that you love or start doing other things that you've never done. However, at this point, all you've done is recognize the evidence that is so compelling. Only God could have written a book through ordinary men. Now you have to decide if you want to open the book to see what God has said. In it, you will find all the answers to why the world is the way it is and why people behave the way they do. It is full of wisdom and joy, and you will wish that you had done so sooner in your life. My suggestion is that you find a solid Christian friend to read with you through the book of John, or you may want to try a YouTube playlist. I've got one in the article here that's highlighted that can either give you a simple and straightforward explanation of what John wrote in the Bible. Either way, I can promise you that you won't regret it. Thanks for listening in, and I hope to see you next time.